Hello, everyone. Welcome to another webinar by Nomads Ba. Nomads Ba is a conference that will take place at the end of November in Buenos Aires. And to warm you all up, we are doing these webinars where we hope to help you on your way or scale your business. We talk about lifestyle, we talk about income. And today we have another great topic to you: how to find and create remote work you love while traveling the world. Working from home and working remotely has given people the freedom to gain those long hours spent commuting back into their lives. It has allowed us to focus on ourselves, our hobbies, and our relationships. Working remotely and living a balanced lifestyle is highly sought after, and some of you may have had a little taster during the pandemic, and perhaps are interested in continuing this. Working remotely can maximize your productivity in a less distracting environment. And one of the great things about it is that you aren't limited to geography or your local job market. I'd like to introduce you to the wonderful women who are here today to join the panel and to talk about their experience and expertise. Maybe we can add them to, hello everyone, welcome, thank you for joining us. I will start with Brittnee Bond. Brittnee has consulted teams around the world to transition to remote work for the last 5 years. She's an expert in remote working, co-working, co-living, and digital nomads. Her passion is helping people transfer their current skill sets to make them remote, and has proven to herself she could do this by helping her law firm go paperless so she could work remotely on a beach in Costa Rica in 2014. Thank you for joining us, Brittnee. Where are you speaking from today?
A small island off the coast of southern Thailand called Koh Phangan.
Nice. It looks like we're crossing different continents today. I myself am speaking from Lisbon. The next person, Hannah Dixon, I'd like to introduce. Hannah Dixon is a virtual assistant coach, matchmaker, and founder of one of the largest and longest running VA training platforms, Digital Nomad Kit. She's trained over 12,000 VAs who go on to work with top entrepreneurs and thought leaders. Hannah focuses on creating standards of excellence in the remote workspace with regards to ethical pay, diversity, and creating meaningful communities. This has elevated her position as the go-to person for hiring ethically and intelligently. After 13 years of continuous travel, she's a staple in the digital nomad scene and has been featured in Forbes, the James Altucher Report, iNews, Thrive Global, DNX, and numerous other media outlets and stages on travel and entrepreneurship. Thank you for joining us today, Hannah.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Where are you today?
I'm currently visiting New York, but I'm based in Mexico usually.
Lovely. Sounds great. Thank you again for joining us. Juliana, let me please introduce you. Juliana Ravi is a recruiter turned career coach. After working for over 15 years as a recruiter and part of the human resources teams in multinational corporations all over the world, she's been working remotely for the past 8+ years and now helps professionals to create a career and lifestyle that makes them happier. Thank you for joining us today, Juliana. Where are you?
I'm in Bansko, Bulgaria, and super happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Amazing. There is a conference going on there at the moment, I hear.
There was last week, the full week, there were 350 digital nomads here from all over the world. So it felt like, just like before COVID, it felt so normal. It was amazing. Really good experience. Yes.
Amazing. Yeah, it's always great to have an entire community join one place and learn together, connect together. I think that is that's the beauty of these conferences. All right, so I want to just give a little more background about this webinar. The webinar is aimed at discussing all types of income that you can create for yourself. So think about remote work, freelance work, or your own online business. We have experts with all kinds of backgrounds here today, as you just heard from the introduction. So I'm so excited about all the different ways that you can start and sustain your nomadic journey financially. So I would like to actually start with asking you how each of you started your own digital nomad life and how you made your income at the time, and perhaps if it changed. If you could mention that too. Brittnee, could we start with you?
Yeah, for sure. I also want to invite everyone who's watching to please interact with us and give comments or questions. It makes me feel like more engaged myself. So this is a co-learning experience. And putting that invitation out there. I started my career in corporate law. I've been working in law firms since like 2008, and I always wanted to travel and work remotely. So on a very selfish reason, I convinced my law firm to go paperless so that I could eventually set up a system so I could work remotely. And then I finally was able to create that situation in 2014. Actually, after two failed attempts, like I helped a law firm go paperless. I asked to work remotely. They said no. And then eventually I moved on to a different law firm, tried it again. So it wasn't magical. It was, being consistent and diligent, and also being very assertive with my needs. That's something I work with my clients on in a really beautiful way. And then I finally had the perfect fit where the employer was like, yeah, let's try this. We really enjoy your work, and we've never done this before. So I moved to Costa Rica, a country I had never been to before. And before that, I had never lived anywhere outside of the US. So for me, it was just really jumping off the bridge, just like, okay, we're doing this. And they would bring the laptop into the firm meetings and put me on Skype. And it was just like such an interesting experience for everyone involved. And that was really beautiful. And then I realized that the culture within corporate law, especially in the US, is very old school. And they were always just thinking I was going to only work temporarily. And then they just wanted me to come back and work in the office for the rest of my life. And I was like, nope, I have seen the promised land. I cannot do this. So then I quit for a while, traveled, and then I realized, okay, I need a lifeboat. I need to figure out a different career that I can do, because it's not sustainable for me to keep going back and then leaving and going back into the office and then traveling. So then I went to and lived in New York City for 2 years and worked in like the most high paying job I could find. And on the side, found people to partner with and help launch a co-living travel company, of which I started my traveling career, and then started consulting, co-working and co-living spaces. And that went into a lot of years of just building communities around the whole world, because digital nomads were just beginning, like around that time, 2015, 2016, in a lot of places. And then, I've evolved and done many startups, many companies, sold successfully 3 of my own companies. And now I am in a phase of building what I call a smart society here on Copenhagen, which is like from the ground up, a society that I could welcome kids into in the future as digital nomads. So it's just like really, it's been a journey over the last 7-8 years.
Thank you for sharing, Brittnee. Yes, sorry, I was muted for a second. Thank you for sharing that with us, Brittnee. I'd love to hear how you started, Hannah. Tell us about it.
Okay, I don't know where to start. I'll try and condense this as much as possible. I worked in fashion a long time ago. You'd never be able to tell by looking at me, but yes, I was a fashionista. And then after that, I hated it. Basically, I realized that everyone I was working with was super depressed, single, in their 50s already. I was like 19 at the time. And then, I was like, I don't want this. So I quit and I took a one-way ticket to Thailand, as you do, with a backpack on my back. And I never came back. So 13 years later, like all the stuff that happened in between, I did workaways. I worked for food and board in exchange for like a few hours of work a day on farms, hostels, bars, everywhere I could. So basically I was living the whole sort of tramping lifestyle for a while there, a long while actually. And it wasn't until I found myself in Italy and I was working on a construction site, and I was doing like plastering and stuff, and I had, cement and plaster all over my clothes, and I didn't have many clothes because I wasn't making much money. And I got an invite to go to Milan to hang out with an old friend of mine that I used to work in fashion with, and she invited me to a party. And I got there, and they're all dolled up and ready to go out, and they're like, "What are you gonna wear?" And I looked down, and like my feet were like bricks of concrete, like on my shoes. And I was like, well, this, I guess. And then it kind of dawned on me. I was like, I want nice things and I'm done with this. Like, it was like this moment of like, I'm done with this. I want to make money. And I didn't know that I could make money online at that time. I just knew I wanted to make money. So in my head, it was like, I'm going to go back to the UK, which is where I grew up. And I'm just going to get a job. And that's kind of what I did. I went back to the UK. I got a job in a bar because that's the only way I knew how to make money at that time. And within 2 months, I met someone online on a dating site, actually, who was working online in SEO. And the only thing that clicked for me, I was like, I don't know what SEO is. I don't know what you're doing, but like, you just told me you work from home on a computer. That means you could do that anywhere. And for me, that was like the, okay, aha moment. I need to get into this. So I learned everything I could from that person. We ended up starting a business together, which failed miserably, but it was my kickstart into the online world. We moved to Budapest with no money. But yeah, from there, basically our clients we were doing web development SEO, which I kind of learned. I was doing a lot of the admin, marketing, that kind of stuff. I fell into the role of a virtual assistant without knowing what that was. Then a lot of our clients wanted those sort of services, and then skip forward, here I am training virtual assistant many years later.
That's quite an amazing story. And I especially love it because, well, you were doing offline jobs before. So, you know, This is if you can do this, then everyone can make that transition, isn't it?
Totally. Yep.
Thank you for sharing. Juliana, I'd love to hear your story as well.
Yes, my story is a bit different than the other two stories. I didn't choose initially to work remotely, so that was something that happened to me. I was working as a corporate recruiter in a cruise company at the time, and then suddenly there was some internal change in the company, and from one day to the other, they changed my contract, so I could not go to the office anymore. And I had to start working from home. So at the beginning, I was like, how do I do that? And I had no idea. I didn't plan. I didn't choose that. But very soon, I started loving it. I had 2 dogs at the time. So it was like amazing to be able to, pet the dogs while I was working. So I kind of liked it. I was like, I think I can fit into that. And then I ended up moving to the city where the new office was, which was Barcelona in Spain. And I went back to the office because that was the logical move, right? Everybody was in the office. But I didn't last a month because I was like, no, I know I can already work from home. I like it. So I was in the same city, but I was the only one working from home. And that stayed like that for a couple of years. And then I got another job. And my requirement from that job on was like, it has to be remote. I don't want to go back to the office anymore. And then I was working remotely again, but I started playing a bit and worked from different places. So I was spending 1 week in a friend's place. I was going to my hometown, stay with my parents, all of that. And I knew I could do the same job working from wherever I was. But still, I had to ask for permission to my boss to be, away from Spain. So at some point I was like, no, I want more. It was like gradual, so working from home, working from anywhere, but I wanted more. I wanted to travel more. So I took 2 years to build up my life and career transition, as I like to say. So I started doing some freelancer gigs. I started having my own clients to build up other source of income up to a point that I could quit my job and start working full-time on my business. And still I was doing the freelancer jobs at that time. So I quit my job and I started traveling full-time and working at the same time. So that's when I consider I turned into a digital nomad. But I went through all the stages, like working from home, working from anywhere, and now finally working as a digital nomad with my own business. So has been a journey, but I wouldn't change that for for anything.
This is another great example of where the gangster lifestyle chose you, basically, right? But this is great to hear your stories, and I love that they're so different from each other. And actually, Juliana, what you've gone through, maybe a lot of people are going through at the moment, right? Because they have been working remotely during the pandemic and potentially have been asked to come back already or will be asked to come back. So yeah, that's an interesting journey. I have a question that I'd like to ask to all of you. And maybe we can start with you, Hannah. In deciding if you should get a remote job, become a freelancer, or start your own business, what are things people should ask themselves and what should they consider?
I would say ask yourself if you're actually capable of working remotely, because I know for some people it's really difficult to work in an environment that they don't know. And this applies to me. So there are ways that you can make it work. So I'll explain that a bit more as well. But if you can actually make it work for yourself, what commitments you already have, if you've sort of set up a life for yourself, you have a mortgage, kids, car, animals, all that kind of stuff, like there are ways that you can navigate having all of those things and still going nomad and working remotely. But just questions to ask yourself, like you need to start getting, maybe house sitters, looking at house sitters. You maybe need to start looking at world schooling for your kids. All those kinds of things you need to ask yourself. But most importantly, if it's actually something you want to do. So what I would recommend is if you're in a full-time employment or part-time employment, any type of employment really, where you have to go into the office right now, ask for a few days working remotely to trial it, especially if your company is open to it, and just literally go across town and work from a coffee shop for a week or two and just see how you feel about that, or go to a different city in the country you're in, because I find that a lot of people, not everyone, I think this is a lifestyle for a lot of people. A lot of people fantasize about this kind of lifestyle, and it can work for most people. But I do think some people need that home base, need that kind of stability. So it is worth trying it out. And that's just one way you can do that for sure. And then to see if it's for you. What was the question again?
If people consider doing remote work, like a remote job, freelancing, or starting their own business, what are things they should ask themselves, and what should they consider? But you did cover quite some ground. That's an very important point. That some people do fantasize about it, but can you actually do it? So your suggestion, a trial period, really, where you try it out for a few days.
And just one more thing I would say as well is just looking at what kind of work you'd want to do, because I think what a lot of people think is that definitely right now, a lot of people are going remote with the current jobs they already have, and they're happy with that. But I think it's important to know that you can go in so many directions when you work remotely. You can start your own business. You can change sort of the type of company you're working with. So start looking at what you want to do, because I think that when you become a nomad or remote worker, you get to sort of design your lifestyle. And I think that your career and your lifestyle can go hand in hand in a way that work well together. So you don't have to be stuck doing a job you hate just because they've said you can go remote. Like, there are so many opportunities out there. So start looking at what you really want to do, not just like where you want to go, but what do you want to do as well? Just not sticking to what you've been given.
This is great advice. Thank you for sharing, Hannah. Juliana, can I ask you the same question? I'll repeat the question. If in deciding if you should get a remote job, become a freelancer, or start your own business, what are things people should ask themselves, and what should they consider?
I think the background people have is extremely important. So as Hannah said, if you're unhappy with your job, the fact that you're going to do the same job remotely doesn't mean that you're going to be happy. So we need to understand that. If you don't like that area, if you're burnt out already, if you are already planning a career change, don't just go remote with the same job, because that's maybe the easiest path, but you won't be happy. But if you like what you do, if you're happy, if you enjoy what you do, you just want to go remote, that's the easiest way. So bring all your backpack, like your experience, your studies, the knowledge, the network you have in that industry, if you still like it, and then go remote with that. If not, you can do a career transition, but you should know that this is difficult. There is a lot of things on the table when you do a career transition, even if you go from one office to the other. So imagine going remotely. It's another layer to add to the situation. So my tip would be, you don't need to do it alone. You can ask for help. So you can attend courses that will speed up the process. You can have coaches or friends who have done the path helping you. So you don't need to do that alone, because it can be painful. And then you might give up on the way because, I cannot do it. Well, you can, but you just need a little bit of help on the way. So yes, define if you are happy doing what you do, and in this case you can just go remotely with the same job or career, or if you want to go for a change, ask for help on the way. And also, creating your own business adds a lot of things on the top of that. So it's not that you're good at what you do, you need to know about business, you need to know about market, about sales, about accounting, a lot of things. So if this is something you really want to do and you consider it's the moment, go for it. But it's a whole new thing, having your own business. You won't be just a technician doing what you do. You need to have a micro vision. So maybe it's easier to just start with what you know, what you can do, and then at some point maybe start your own business. That's the path I followed. So I just did an easy transition, and now I have my own business, which adds a lot of things on the on the table for me.
Thank you for sharing that, Juliana. I will add as well that I do know a lot of people who think they have to change their careers because they hate their job. But sometimes I really want to ask the question, do you hate the circumstance of the job, or maybe the boss or the team or the office? Or do you actually hate, if you would take out that expertise that you have and you would apply it to a situation that would be remote, with very nice people, with people who appreciate your expertise, would you still hate it? Because it is definitely an easier step to start with expertise that you already have. If you would then want a remote job, you could already earn much more than starting from scratch. and the same applies for freelancing, right? So yeah, I do like to ask people that question. I believe that Brittnee is having some connection issues, so we're going to move on to the next question. Hannah, I want to ask you, who can be a virtual assistant, especially since you obviously have Digital Nomad Kit and you've trained and you are training so many people to become virtual assistants. Who can be a virtual assistant, and how can they get started?
Yeah, I would say almost anyone can become a virtual assistant if it's of interest to them. You need to have just a few basics, which I believe a lot of people have now, is just the ability to, use a computer, navigate a computer, search engine, that kind of stuff, have access to good Wi-Fi, have access to decent tech, a good laptop, good smartphone, all that kind of stuff. So I think anyone who has the drive to want to do it could learn. It's going to be easier for some people if they have some sort of technical background or customer service background or an online career already. But I do think that it's one of the easier entry points, actually the easiest entry point into working remotely if you want to be self-employed. Because again, what we were all just talking about is you're going to take from some of your previous experience and be able to bring that forward into a digital environment. So I'm just going to give an example. And this is something that anyone could do if you're sitting at home or you want to do this exercise later, is just start writing out 3 lists. What am I good at? And don't exclude things that you're interested in. Put everything you're good at professionally, but also things you're interested in, yoga, eating burritos, like whatever it is. And then you want to put like a list of what are you actually good at? Did I say that one already? No, what you're interested in, what you're good at. And then you can start looking at what you can get paid for, because the fact of the matter is almost every business online, well, every business needs to be online if they're not online, but every business online needs support in some way, whether they know it or not. They need social media support, they need customer service support, they need graphic design support. The list of what you can do as a VA is kind of endless, which makes it a really good entry point for you. But you do need to start defining who you'd want to work with and what skills you can bring to the table. So that's why it's good to do that exercise. What am I good at? What am I interested in? And then start looking at, how that marries up with what's out there. Because if you remember that almost every industry could use virtual assistants, you'll find stuff in there. So let's give just an example. I'm really good at customer service, and I really enjoy, no, that was a bad example. I really enjoy yoga, and I'm really good at customer service. There are going to be yoga studios who need customer support on their Facebook pages. Maybe their intakes, their ordering system on the website, they need support with that, or complaints or refunds or something like that. And there is space for you if you can figure out what it is you like doing, what you're good at. And the reason I say what you like doing is because you'll start to weed out, what you're good at. You'll be like, well, I don't actually enjoy that thing, but I do enjoy this thing, and I do enjoy this thing. And it's good to do that because, like I said before, if you are moving into a remote career, or especially if you're going self-employed, you need to be really clear on the fact that, this is quite a big career transition, but it is quite an easy jump because you're using what you've already got. But you want to be happy. You don't want to just like, okay, I'm really, really good at customer service, but you hate talking to people. You're going to have a terrible time. Whereas if you're really good at graphic design, you can bring that forward and you can push that as one of your main services. I think just the thing that's important to note is that there are people out there hiring virtual assistants. I've seen a 42% jump in people hiring the virtual assistants I've trained. I'm seeing way more people becoming virtual assistants. There is a demand. There's a huge demand, and it's only growing as things get more digital. So if this is something you'd be interested in, that's probably the easiest way, is just look at what you're interested in, what you're good at, and start finding little pockets and spaces and reaching out to those people. But yeah, almost anyone could become a virtual assistant if you think about the scope of what can be done as a virtual assistant.
Amazing. Yeah, that sounds like a very wide scope. And that sounds like most people have some skills to bring to the table to start this. That sounds great. Thank you for sharing. Juliana, what are good first steps to start with if you would want a remote job?
Yeah, just want to mention what Hannah said, that I completely agree. Like, happiness and enjoy what you do is extremely important when we talk about remote work, freelancer, having your business, all of that. Because when we have this mentality of, I need a job, I work in the office, that's what I do, most of the time we don't really ask ourselves if we enjoy, if we're happy, if there is pleasure in it. So when I talk about remote work, having your own business, any kind of flexible work, anything that can be done online, I think it's extremely important to put on the table. Do you enjoy what you do? Are you happy doing that? Because it's not only about work. Work is like a tool that will allow you to live the lifestyle you want. So being happy, enjoy what you do is extremely important. So just to reinforce what Hannah said, and to land a remote job. What I like to do with my clients is start from the beginning and start by clarity. So understand, why are you considering a remote job? Why that is important for you? What do you really want? So dig more into clarity and start by your short-term and your long-term life and career goals. I don't separate life and career. We are one person. That would be extremely schizophrenic if we think like my career is completely separate from my motivations, the things I like to do, what I want to live and all of that. So it's career and life like this. So understand your short-term goals and your long-term goals. Understand how the job is aligned with that. That's the first thing. So short-term, long-term career goals. Then see the options that you have. Understand the reality of the market. Are people, as Hannah said also, are people going to pay for that? Can you make a career all of that? Can you make money out of that? Or can you adjust a little bit to something that people will pay you? So understand the reality of the market. Check the options that you have. Then see what you're willing to do. If you're willing to pay the price for it, maybe you need to attend a course. Maybe you need to, I don't know, go a little bit more entry level position to get. Maybe you need to, quit your job and be for some months just focusing in the job search and network. So what are you willing to do? Which are the actions that you're willing to take? And then as the fourth step, create an action plan for that. So understand that if you don't have clarity, whatever you do is going to be a waste of time, money, and energy. So it's kind of walk some steps behind, look in a sincere way what you want to do with your life, with your career. How does the remote job fit into it? And after that, start taking action. So this is my recommended. Don't just go crazy because I have to. Like, stop, understand, have a micro vision, and then you start focusing on the small actions that will lead you to the micro vision that you had before.
Thank you for those great suggestions, Juliana. I have a question for you, Brittnee. Over the last years, you've had remote jobs, worked as a freelance consultant, and you also ran your own business at the same time or overlapping times. Is this something you recommend people to consider?
I don't recommend the overlapping. Just a sound check. Can you hear me okay? Because
Yes,
I know everything was freaking out before. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Yeah, I hit major burnout actually right before COVID because I was organizing a conference, like a full-on conference, and working for a consultancy firm where I was flying a country a week. 1 week out of every month I was in a different country in Asia consulting C-suites for design thinking and culture change. And then I was also running digital nomad communities in Chiang Mai. And I was just like, I have no time for anything. I had a dog and my brother was visiting and my boyfriend just moved from Australia. It was just like so much all at once. But I just wanted to back up and just say quickly for like the resourcing thing that we were talking about earlier, like how to start or whatever. The thing that I really come up with is it's important to shift our mindset from an employee mindset to a remote worker mindset. And it's such a new concept, but I think it's important to highlight what that means. And that basically just means like you may not own your own business. You kind of have to act autonomously and keep track of your time and like really regulate yourself. We're going to move out of the third industrial revolution of like being a factory, fishbowl type situations to the fourth industrial revolution, which is completely technology based. We don't have to be anywhere. We can work from anywhere. And there's been so many times where I'm like in the back of a taxi or, like on a train or like I'm sitting in a yoga shala because I'm actually at a yoga retreat right now. Like just anywhere, but you can resource, and if you can monitor yourself and regulate yourself, then you can have a successful remote work career. But you really have to like take care of that yourself and then resource through your community. And for me, I couldn't do it without my community. And if people are getting started, what I would recommend is to go to your local co-working space. Like if COVID allows and you have an open co-working space, and even if you're still in a job, ask your employer, can I work in the co-working space one day a week? Like, I just want to get out of the office. I want some fresh inspiration. And then you can start networking with people and asking them, how do you work remotely? Or how did you get your job? And it's so inspiring to see people in person who are doing things that you would like to do, or having a lifestyle that you would like. And then if you want to start traveling, I always recommend people, if they're wanting to go to a city and they're like, how do I meet people? How do people access these remote work communities? Like, this is something and I get asked all the time. And I always just say, go on Facebook and type in the name of the city and then type in digital nomads. So like, for instance, Chiang Mai digital nomads, or a better one actually is Lisbon digital nomads, because you guys have an awesome Facebook group. But it's just like, you can do that before you start traveling. And I actually really recommend it, because then you can start seeing how people interact, how they meet each other. You can maybe make a couple friends on there. And so you'll have those resources when you land in the city, and you can ask questions into there, like, where do I find housing? What's the best co-working space? So really, like, resource yourself. You don't have to do it alone. There's so many resources out there already, and most of them are free. And then, of course, if you need help, ask for help and get that extra help.
I think it's great that you bring this up, Brittnee, because of course, getting your income from a remote source, or from a source that allows you to work remotely, is step one. But then a very important next step is coming right after, and that's, how do I create my community? I think we've been creating our communities. We've been very used to creating communities by proximity. So either where I'm from, or my street, or my work, which is the office, right? So that's an important part that you'd then be missing out on. Your people you studied with, and especially if you're a nomad, you'd be moving to all these different places. Yes, we seek to travel. Yes, we seek freedom, absolutely. But the most important thing to sustain it is to have a community where you can have deep friendships and relationships with, who can support you on a business level and a personal level, and of course that you can enjoy all these beautiful places with, right? So thank you for bringing that.
Can I share one thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, can I share one thing about it? When I was still working my full-time job, and I also overlapped a bit, like Brittnee was mentioning. So I had my full-time job, I started doing freelancer, and I started having my own clients because I wanted to do this transition. Yeah, all of that together was crazy, working like 11, 12 hours per day. And I wanted to have enough income outside of my full-time job before quitting that. That was my choice. And it was hard, but that was what worked for me. And I remember that the last year that was working, still as an employee, still as a corporate recruiter, all my holidays that year, I dedicated to attend digital nomad events, because I was like, I want to get closer to people who are already living the reality, the lifestyle I want to live. So the community, I didn't know it was a term, community, but I was just like, I need to get closer to this reality. I need to be surrounded by people who are doing what I want to do. I was doing so many changes in my life to be a digital nomad, to be able to travel and work full time. I was like, I need to get closer to people who are doing that. So all the holidays on that year, I remember I was attending events, and it was extremely important to connect me with the reality. It's not perfect. It's not magic. People are not sit on the beach with the laptop having cocktails all the time. No, it is work. So it was like a shock of reality, but in a good way. I made friends that I'm friends until now. I made business with those people. I had a lot of fun. I keep meeting them all over the world. So the community is extremely important. That was my choice at the beginning, without knowing I was searching for community, but that's it. Now I know the word is community, and I keep traveling and meeting people. So for whoever is starting, I think that's a great pillar to take care, to invest time, to attend events in person, online, it doesn't matter, all of them, since the beginning, because that will help you to grow towards the direction you choose. It doesn't matter if it's remote work, freelancing, or having your own business.
Yeah, go ahead, Hannah.
I just wanted to add to that as well about community. I think it's so important. So thanks for bringing it up, Brittnee, and Juliana for expanding on it. So when I started my business as well, I created a Facebook group, because for me, what I was finding was that I wasn't seeing people like me at the time. Like, this was many years ago now. I wasn't seeing women, let alone gay people. I wasn't seeing women anywhere. So I was going into all these groups, and I didn't feel like I could talk about certain things or ask certain questions. So I actually created a Facebook group to meet other people like me. So I think that's just something to be said as well. If you're not finding spaces they're out there. There are hidden nomads who don't talk at conferences like this and who don't show up on social media because they're working on projects behind the scenes. There are so many people out there, so you can create your own communities as well. I had a friend, for example, who was looking for a girlfriend, and he was like, he said to me, I have something secret to tell you. I was like, what? He's like, I'm Christian. I was like, oh, I'm gay. Like, you know, it's okay. And he was like, how do I find like a good Christian digital nomad woman? And I was like, why don't you create a community? And he did. And I was like, a Christian digital nomad community. So if you aren't finding your people, you can create your own communities as well. Especially, I think people with kids, people with animals, all those kinds of things. There are communities out there, but if there's specifics about your lifestyle or your interest, you can also find that yourself by creating it and being the sort of trailblazer there.
Well, we're going into all kinds of value bombs here because I think people underestimate how important this is for the totality of your digital nomad life and career, right? This becomes your network. These people become your mentors. These people become your friends. I highly agree with what you said, Hannah, especially since when I came to Lisbon 6 years ago, I felt very alone. I knew there were some people working in some cafes remotely, but you know, I also didn't want to be that crazy lady tapping on everyone's shoulder while people are trying to work. I set up the first digital nomad meetups and teamed up with people. We're now 10 organizers in Lisbon 6 years later. We have 10,000 members in the community. We have meetups that are 100 people or more. We still try to do this in a legal and safe way during the pandemic whenever it's allowed. And it has created connections for other people and hopefully a lot of joy as well. So if it doesn't exist, start it. I think that's a great tip. And I think that Brittnee also did a lot in this regard in Chiang Mai specifically. And of course, the online community of Digital Nomad Kit is huge and very helpful for everyone who is involved in that. So do join these groups. I am going to move to the next question because we're approaching the end nearly, and I still have a lot to ask you girls. Brittnee, a question that was sent in from one of the people attending this webinar. I have been working remotely during the pandemic, but my boss now wants me to come back to the office, but I don't want to. How should I handle this?
Great question. First off, I think it depends on how much the safety of the person asking is, like, how much do they need that job? Because I think we feel more comfortable asking for things when, you know, we're not going to lose our house or anything like that. So please take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt, because it's like, if you really need this job, sometimes you have to power through it so you can find or build your own escape route. But what something I did was I couldn't find content online where people were able to show to their boss, like, hey, this is how people actually work remotely, and this is like what's really happening out there. So I made a whole little mini TV series about it, where I traveled around for 6 months, got sponsorship, and visited many co-living spaces all over Europe and Africa, and interviewed people. And then I went to London and Berlin, and I interviewed like Eventbrite and LinkedIn and Zapier and all these companies that are like super remote friendly, so that people could show their bosses, like, this is what it's really like to work remotely. These are companies that are doing it. So I would recommend looking at some of those interviews, because those are really helpful, and I'll explain a lot more. So that's like Remote Collective on YouTube. And to give a very direct answer, from my legal side, what I did was I built a best case scenario of like what would happen, like why I was valuable to the company, how I could actually work better and serve the company better by working remotely, and giving like, if you have any sort of metrics or statistics of your output of what you were able to do before you worked remotely and now what you're able to do after, and then also so anything that will help the company feel like they're getting more out of you, more value out of you, more profit out of you. I know that sounds maybe not as human-centric, but you want to go into the conversation accessing and addressing their needs first, even though in the end it's going to address your needs. So I would build a case study of that. Like, this is what is helping me work remotely. This is why I should do this, how it's helping you. And then if there's so much content out there nowadays of why remote work is beneficial. So if the boss is open to looking at that, researching some of those, and just going into it as if you're building a report, and it's like your report freak. And this is what I did with my law firm, and it didn't work the first 2 times, and the third time it worked. So I would just say, like, you're never going to know unless you ask. So please do it. And especially nowadays, people don't realize how much clout they have, like, because it costs a lot of times, and people, you guys in recruitment know this, it could cost a lot of money to replace someone and find a good person. And so employees think they don't have that much power in the situation, but they really have a lot more power and negotiating power than they realize. So just remember that and go into it like pretty confident and like happy and like all the things, because like also the energy we bring into the conversation will affect it. Because if you go in there like as their friend and like really wanting to help the company, deciding to help the company, then that will make them want to give it to you more, instead of like, I need this right now, and they're like putting their defensive and all those things. So those are just some quick tips from me.
I hate to turn this into a joke, but it was easier to just let you get what you wanted, Brittnee, than to hire another person. So, but yeah, obviously turning it back into serious, this is a fact. If you have been performing well, you've been delivering results, it is hard to replace a person who's reliable like that. So that obviously speaks for you. Earlier when you, I think all of you ladies brought it up, taking full responsibility. And this is something that I read in a book called The First 100 Days of New Leaders. It said something about your boss is probably going to be very unavailable, too busy to answer you, not going to be supportive or helpful. Take full responsibility for the outcome. Make sure that you know what you need to do, what's expected of you, and find ways to best achieve this and deliver results. Something I'm personally also very bad at is then reporting those results and keeping track of all of the things I've achieved for the company. This is something that's really important to bring to the table when you do what Brittnee just advised to do in your negotiation of why you should be going remote. And happy people are productive people. It's being proven over and over again. And if the remote life can give you some more time to spend with yourself or doing the things that you like or with the people that you love, then that should have a direct result on your
Can I say, yeah.
Absolutely.
Can I say something? I always recommend my clients to keep an achievement journal. So keep track of results, because we get so busy doing things that we normally don't, take the time to write down, like, I increase the profit by X%, I got X new clients, I reduced the cost. So just keep the track of that, because you never know, but it probably will be useful to you in different circumstances, like to update your resume, your LinkedIn profile, also to go talking to your boss and say, can I keep working remotely? So keep a track of the results you bring on the table, especially if you worked from home during the pandemic. That's going to be extremely helpful. Also, not everybody want to keep working remotely. So some people are dying to go back to the office for different reasons. So if you don't tell your current job that you want to work remotely, they won't know. They cannot assume that, because that's not for everybody. So the fact that you say might be easy for them to say, okay, that's fine, I have no problem with that. But if you don't say, and you assume they know, but they're not allowing you, no, you have to say, you have to speak up about it. And another point is that way more companies right now in 2021, they are open to hire remote people. So if you have the conversation with your current boss, that should be always the first step, because it's the easiest one. If you bring to the table results, the achievements, the positive impact you had working from home during the pandemic, and still they say no, well, you might consider searching for another job in a company that it can work remotely. So there are plenty options. Nobody should just stop like, oh, I have to go back to the office by September, I'm unhappy. Well, there are so many things you can do. So go for it, because this is the best moment to consider keep working remotely, and there are ways to do that.
Thank you for adding to that. Hannah, I have a question for you. You already shared that you had a completely different background when you started as a VA. Can you give more examples of backgrounds people have who join your programs? What are the skills they already had, and what are the skills they have or had to learn?
Yeah, sure. It's really varied, as you can imagine. We've had people straight who are still in university. We've had a lot of students come through. We've had people. I would say I'm probably on the far end of the extreme, going from like a farm to that. Most people have had some sort of interaction with computers in the last few years. We've had a lot of people in hospitality, bartenders, waitresses, waiters, that kind of stuff. We've also had people come from corporate backgrounds as well, who want to do something on their own. Yeah, it's extremely varied. I would say at the far end, like I said, is like the farm stuff. Then we've got people who have been in full-time employment as maybe office managers or logistics managers, something like that. But we've also had a lot of creative people. So we've got, video. If you think about the term virtual assistant, you're assisting people virtually. Essentially, that means you can do anything. If you're if you're a video editor, you can be considered a VA. So that's the kind of the take I have on it. So we have video editors. We have people with like creative backgrounds. We have graphic designers, people who came from office situations who wanted to do something on their own, who had a great portfolio and could use their network to go remote and do things their own way. So yeah, I would say the majority, probably there isn't a majority. No, there really isn't. It's too varied to say. And we have people from ages 16 to 75 in the community. So it's really open and accessible if that's something you're interested in.
And let this be a message to anyone listening, especially if they think they can't do it because my background isn't in this or in that, that you've seen it all, Hannah, and that you've seen people be successful from whichever background. Thank you for sharing that. We only have a few more minutes left. So if people are watching and they have questions for the last few minutes of this webinar, by all means, already start sending them in. If not, we will just continue with the questions that I have. The next question I have for Juliana: what are some of the biggest myths or limiting beliefs you hear from people who turn to you for advice about getting a remote job?
Interesting. Yeah. People have a lot of misconception about remote jobs. So a common one is that you need to know exactly what you're going to do next to start searching for a remote job. You need to have the full picture for the next 10 years of your career to start doing that. And that's not the way it is. Like, very few people know what they want to do in the next 5-10 years, and it's okay like that. So when you want to transition from an office job to a remote job, you don't need to know everything. It's fine if you don't know. It's even enough if you just say, I'm not happy where I am. I want to change. I want to land a remote job, but I have no idea which kind of remote job. I have no idea how to start. So you don't need to have it all clear before you start taking steps. You can start taking steps, and clarity will come on the way, on the go. The more you move towards that direction, you're going to get clarity. So this is one myth, that you need to know everything, the kind of job, how you're going to get there, have deadlines of that. You don't need that. Another thing is that if you say in a job interview, I want any kind of remote job, I'm open to it, it's going to help you. It won't help you. It's impossible that one person can do any kind of remote job, because you have a background, you have some knowledge, you have some preference, you have some skills. So don't just say, I'm open to any kind of remote job, because that's going to make you look terrible as a candidate. So be specific, get some training if you need to learn new skills, or start with everything that you have on your background, your previous experience. But don't just go and say, hey, I'm open to any kind of remote job, because this is not going to help you in the process. Also, another thing that people sometimes have a misconception is that as far as I'm working remotely, my life is going to be easier, I'm going to be happy, everything is going to be fine and smooth and all of that. No. Hannah is doing like this. No. There are other things, other challenges, other situations. So as we mentioned before, you better go for something that you like, something that you enjoy, the kind of company that you are a right fit, the kind of task you enjoy doing, because it's going to be painful if you are doing something that you hate remotely. You won't get any better. So don't just go for anything. Choose something that you like, something that you enjoy. So yeah, maybe these are some of the myths. There are way more, but be sincere with yourself. Don't just jump into a remote job because it is remote, because that can be a big mistake that you're making.
Okay. Thank you for sharing these great tips, Juliana. I have a question for all three of you. Are there things that you would have done differently when you started your own nomadic journey? And what are some of the things that worked really well? Brittnee, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think for me it was just being more gentle with myself because I just put a lot of pressure on myself, and this was back when like digital nomads wasn't even a term yet, and there wasn't really communities. So I wish I had been nicer. Um, but what I would recommend for people now is what we were saying a lot earlier. Is just like really build out your network, even on your LinkedIn network. Just like even before. I mean, be sensitive if you don't want to let your current job know some things, but just like start exploring people and connecting on your LinkedIn network. And there's so many online remote events right now. There's so much stuff going on in the community in person, wherever you are, probably if COVID allows. So just like don't do it alone because there's no need to anymore. There's so many resources in such a worldwide community, and everyone's like really welcoming and helpful. Um, and there's no stupid question because we've all asked that question before and we just happen to be a couple steps ahead, and like so people do want to help. So if someone feels frozen or feels alone, just to start resourcing and get enabled so they can move forward, because I believe everyone should have the right to work remotely if they want to, and I really do. I've seen that like people are able to do it if they really want to, and they're able to get those resources.
Thank you for sharing, Brittnee. Hannah, do you have anything to share? Do you want me to repeat the question, or you got it? Yeah, I repeat the question. So what are some things you would have done differently when you started your own nomadic journey, and what are things that worked really well for you?
Thanks for repeating the question, by the way. I'd say one similar to Brittnee, like beating myself up about, like putting a lot of pressure on myself. That was something for sure. I think not comparing yourself to others when you're starting, especially if you're going the self-employed route, if you're building a business or something like that, or becoming a VA. I definitely got trapped in the whole sort of like, oh, this one's got more money than me, or this one's got more clients than me, or this one's got better clients than me, or my marketing's not good enough. Just all these things, like comparing myself to other people and not looking at my own journey, constantly looking at what everyone else was doing. So really staying in my lane and recognizing that everyone has a very unique journey and nothing's going to look the same for everyone. There are going to be similarities and crossovers, but we all have different starting points, and we all have different privileges that put us in different positions for how quickly things will be successful. So I think not comparing is something that I would tell people to. I know it's hard to do, but it's constant work. You have to constantly remind yourself. And I would say one thing to remind yourself to not compare yourself to others is to realize that everyone is an expert in their own right. So even if you're coming into, let's say, a virtual assistant role and all you know is how to use Microsoft Word or something like that, and then looking at someone who's like, Dubsado CRM queen or whatever, you can look at that and say, well, okay, I don't know that yet. And yet someone would still hire me to create a Microsoft Word document, because to someone else, that's an expert skill. To someone who can't do that, they would hire me for that. So always reminding yourself that you're an expert at the stage you're at, and that there is no like place you're going to be where you're like, I've made it, because there's always more you can do, and there's nothing's ever perfect. So I think that's just important to note as well. I think another thing that I wish I'd done differently is have more of a safety net. I definitely jumped all in. I said I went back to the UK, I got a job. I wasn't paying very much, and I quit very quickly when I realized I could work online. So I went all in on that, had no savings, moved myself to Budapest. I was in a room that was 125 euros a month in a really dodgy house share, actually. And I was struggling. I was really struggling at the beginning because it is hard. So having a little bit of a buffer of money, or having a
runway.
Yeah. Because, absolutely. I was like struggling to even put data
on my phone. It removes stress at the very least. Yeah,
absolutely. And then things that went positively, again, creating community, finding community. I think can't stress enough how important that is. I know we keep bringing it up, but that's how important it is.
Absolutely. Thank you. We have, I just would like to have your pick on this question. So what were the things that you would have done differently when you started your own nomadic journey, and what are things that worked really well for you? And then we will go to the question straight after. We're running a little bit out of time, but I still want to hear what you have to say, Juliana.
Okay, so I would say what I would do different is follow that first, because for a long time I was not happy with my career, with the fact that I still had to work from one place and go to the office from time to time. But people were telling me like, your life is perfect. It's so good. You live in a great place. You already travel a lot. You have a good job. So don't listen to others. If you feel like remote job is for you, go for it. Don't just wait for everybody to approve it, because it might never happen. That's what I would have done differently. And what helped me in the process was do a transition in a gradual way that worked for me. So as I mentioned before, I had my full-time job, I was doing freelance gig, and I was starting my own business. So that was my choice, because I wanted to have the financial security before quitting my full-time job. So you don't need to just present your resignation letter on Monday and then you're going to figure out everything. You can do things gradually. You can search for a job, you can start a business, you can test, you can start having other incomes before you do the transition, so you can go slowly in the process.
Thank you for sharing that, Juliana. We're going to move quickly to a question from the audience. We have a question from Joanna, a very good one, I will say. Sometimes, do you feel you're tired from moving to other cities? Do you ever feel or think that you want to settle in one city? Brittnee, do you have anything to say about this?
Yeah, this is a good question, because most people cycle out of digital nomad life because they assume that it is you have to go a country a month forever, or you have to, or sometimes even faster. Like, I'm running into people and they're like, I'm only here for a week. I'm like, how? This is not good for your nervous system to be moving and not counting your productivity. Like, it takes about like I say 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, like to settle into a routine somewhere, and also to like find food and like the good Wi-Fi and all the gym, everything that you need for a stable life. So what I found in my full, like, I left the States 7 years ago. I'm living abroad for full-time for 7 years, and it has been, the first year or two I was bouncing around a lot, and what I found was a home base is really important. So mine for most of the last 7 years was Chiang Mai. And so I have a house there, I keep it when I was leaving and just like sublease it to some friends. Even though I was only there for 4 or 5 months a year, it just was like so nice to have a home and just be like, this is where all my books live. And like, this is like where like my plants are and all those things. And what a lot of us who have been doing this for a while say is that we actually want to do seasons. So it's like Chiang Mai for a while was like a really good season from October to February, and then like you go for the summer season like in Europe, and then sometimes like now I was starting to go to South Africa and like to Rio and like start. But what I would do is I would rotate through those cities, the same ones every year, and stay for about 3 months. And then you have your routine, you have your friends that live there full time. So you have like a community of people, and then you have the sprinkling of extra digital nomads that are like so excited to meet up with. And like Rosanna and I sometimes plan to be in the same city at the same time. But you have like that stable network and the stable routine. I do not think it's sustainable to go on forever and ever and ever. And then also because of COVID, I have since lived in one place for the last year and a half, and it's been actually really good for my nervous system and my productivity, just to be like, okay, well, I don't have a choice, I'm just here, and then like just diving deeper into my connections, my community, and my routine, and listening to what my body needs has been really beautiful. Because when you're traveling, you kind of like the excitement for me just like throws a lot of it out the window. I'm like, I want to see all the things, or like, you know, when you have digital nomad friends, it's like, oh, they're only in town for today or this week, and so you kind of like drop a lot of things just to see people. It can throw your routine off. So just to be really aware of that and honor what your needs are, I think is really important.
This is really good advice. Thank you, Brittnee. I hope this answered your question, Joanna. We have very little time. Is there anything that wasn't mentioned by Brittnee that you'd like to add, Juliana or Hannah?
I just want to quickly say as well, like just what Brittnee said, there is no way to nomads. Like there's no one way. And if you Google stuff, you're going to see lots of people's opinions. None of them are correct if they're not correct for you. What I do is I continent hop. I go to like one continent. I base myself there in a city that I love. Right now it's Mexico City. And then I regionally travel weekends, weeks, 2 weeks here, there, but I have a base for that whole year. So every year I'll just move continent. So it can look different for everyone. Don't feel like there's any one way to do it. Take as much luggage as you want. You don't have to do the whole one backpack thing. Whatever suits you. There's no one way.
Thank you.
Yeah, nothing to add. I think
nothing to add.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
They said it perfectly. I really agree with you as well. I have just found out something that hurts my heart, and it's that all three of you, have never been to Buenos Aires. How is this possible? Come on. Well, let this be an amazing excuse to see you in Buenos Aires for the first time. The conference takes place in the last week of November. I do recommend to also come in the weeks surrounding the conference, because the whole community will be gathering there. There will be off events, there will be meetups, dinners, workshops, other opportunities to connect with others. And I think this is a great place to go to, because it has all the resources we need. The internet's stable. There are a lot of co-working spaces. There's a really interesting startup scene as well. There are beautiful places to visit. There's a lot of culture. The food's amazing. The people are extremely entrepreneurial and very funny as well. So I always have a great time in Buenos Aires. So please allow me to invite you to come to Buenos Aires. I really look forward to hanging out with you there. Anyone who's already in Buenos Aires, I'm sure that you would love to see these ladies on stage, perhaps at the conference. So let's see if we can make it happen. And of course, all the other speakers that will be there as well. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And yeah, it's I don't know if you are meat eaters or not. The cuisine of Argentina is very eclectic, so I very much recommend it. Just an off-topic thing for people who are paying attention here. This is a full female panel. This is not a panel about can women travel and work online and be successful. I think this is proof that women can do this. And of course, if there's any limiting belief or any worries that this cannot be done, let yourself be convinced otherwise today. And you will see that the Nomad community is becoming more and more diverse in terms of gender, in terms of background, in terms of sexuality, everything. So luckily we're becoming a better representation of what the world is like in general. And I'm excited to see this develop even more. I think this is about the last questions we've had. So I'd like to now go with our outro and have all of you share with the community what you have to offer for them, and how they can follow you, how they can maybe learn more about what you're doing. Do you want to start, Juliana?
Yes, I can start. So I have a YouTube channel that weekly I share a lot of good content about career, remote work, use of LinkedIn, interview preparation, resume, all of that. So you can just search for, I think Rosanna is going to share, right, the details on the chat, but you can search for, you can go to my website that is here right beside my name, julianarabi.com. And then you have the link to my YouTube channel. Please go ahead and subscribe. We can connect on LinkedIn. You can send me an email. So yeah, I leave my doors open. I would love to connect, but I think my YouTube channel has a lot of information that can help you. Yeah, that it is. That can help you to start changing your career, going remotely, have a better performance in interviews and all of that. So yeah, I would love to connect and keep the conversation going later on.
Thank you for sharing. Next, could you, Hannah, share with us what you have for the community?
Yes, you can follow me everywhere at Digital Nomad Kit, almost every social media. I think I have that handle. My website, it's Juliana's as well. I also have a free 5-day training for people who might want to become virtual assistants starting at the end of this month, well, the 26th of July. Totally free. This is like thousands of people start here. It's a really great place to see if it's something for you, see what you could offer with your background experience. And it's just really fun, great place to network and meet other people doing great things. So do join that. Rosanna's going to drop the link. It's loads of fun and very comprehensive if you're interested in starting.
Oh, sorry, we had the one from Juliana's show while you were saying this. A little bit of a technical error, but it's you can find all the links in the comments right now. Hopefully we will be able to remove.
You just go to my website, you'll find the link at the top.
Or just ask Juliana, I don't know. Okay, thank you for sharing that. And do join the 5-day VA challenge. It is a great way to find out if this is something for you. And last but not least, Brittnee, could you share if there's anything that you'd like to have people check out? Where can they find more about you?
Yeah, for sure. My name is very Googleable. Like my name is connected to everything. So BrittneeBond.com. I have LinkedIn, social media, everything. And then my brand for remote work stuff is Remote Collective. So I have Facebook page, Instagram, YouTube. And my YouTube, I really have dedicated the last year, a year, 2 years now. I feel like with COVID, we lost a year. But like the last 2 years, of content there that is like just to help people. So Remote Collective on YouTube. And yeah, I would love to connect with people. And if you go on my website, BrittneeBond.com, just shoot me a little, let's hang out, let's talk. I've helped a lot of people transition and go through the process. And I'm just like always down to have a chat and help them.
Thank you. This message was also sponsored by Juliana. I'm kidding. I'm sorry for the technical error here, guys. But I hope that the message was clear. In the comments, you can find both Brittnee's and Hannah's information and Juliana's information as well, in case you haven't seen it yet. And we will be ending this webinar. I thank you, ladies, so much. From the bottom of my heart, I think this is really useful information for anyone who's considering digital nomad life or already starting to prepare for it, or even if you're just new and perhaps struggling. This is, I hope that you've received advice today. Ladies, I really hope to see you in Buenos Aires shortly. In 2 weeks, there will be another webinar with a different topic. You can stay tuned on nomadsba.co to get your ticket to that. It will be free, just as this one, which is crazy because of all the value bombs that we've dropped here. But by all means, go and sign up. Ladies, thank you so much again. And I wish you a very nice rest of your day, night, or wherever you are.
Thanks so much for having me. It was nice meeting you both.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Ciao.